Hello and welcome to Weekly News Highlights. I'm Kim Dami in Seoul. Let's recap the week with news stories that made headlines. The first preparatory hearing for President Yoon Suk-yeol's impeachment trial took place on Friday. Representatives of the impeachment committee and President Yoon's legal team presented the key issues of the dispute and disclosed their plans for proceeding with the trial. Senior diplomats of South Korea and the U.S. met in Washington for the first time since the martial law order was issued in South Korea. The two sides agreed to entirely resume bilateral diplomatic and security schedules that were postponed due to the political turmoil. And the birth rate in South Korea posted its biggest rise in 14 years in October, thanks to a general increase in the number of marriages of couples who postponed their weddings due to the pandemic. The Constitutional Court held the pretrial session of the Constitutional Court's hearing on Friday, where the impeachment committee and President Yoon Suk-yeol's legal team went over their plans for proceeding with the trial. Our Oh Soo-young starts us off.
The Constitutional Court session to set out a roadmap for President Yoon Suk-yeol's impeachment trial ended without conclusive grounds, as the first preparatory hearing for his case on Friday wrapped up in 40 minutes. Starting at 2 p.m, the hearing was attended by Yoon's legal representatives and the National Assembly's impeachment panel, with two justices aiming to organise the main grounds for impeachment and a list of witnesses and evidence both sides wished to draw upon throughout the trial. However, as President Yoon's side did not submit any materials, the court was unable to form concrete lists of grounds, witnesses or evidence. Based on the National Assembly's motion for impeachment and documents submitted prior to the hearing, the justices outlined four rough grounds for impeachment, which include Yoon's declaration of martial law on December 3rd, the proclamation of the martial law order, the lockdown of the National Assembly and disruption to parliamentary activities, and the attempted search and seizure of the National Election Commission servers and their employees' mobile phones. These include the deployments of troops to facilitate Yoon's decree. The National Assembly's panel said they will later decide whether to call for Yoon's alleged order to arrest political, legal and media figures as an independent ground for impeachment. The panel also applied to summon 15 witnesses implicated in the martial law order, such as former Defense Minister Kim Yong-yeon, Park An-soo, who acted as martial law commander, and Roh Sang-won, a former director of military intelligence. Before the hearing began, the National Assembly's impeachment panel chief Chung Chong-nae and former Constitutional Court Justice Kim Il-soo indicated to reporters that they will emphasize that Yoon's actions disrupted the country's constitutional order and that he incited insurrection by declaring martial law. Meanwhile, Yoon's legal team told the court that the grounds proposed by the National Assembly were based on media coverage and called for evidence-based claims. The president, in a speech on December 12th, argued his declaration of martial law was a political act not subject to judicial review, and that it was his executive right. Also, his team appeared to contest the Constitutional Court's method of notifying Yoon on the trial proceedings. The president for over a week rejected the delivery of court papers, leading the judges to deeming the documents received at his residence. As he left the hearing session, attorney Yoon Gap-gun said the president himself would speak at an appropriate time, appearing to raise the possibility that Yoon could appear during the trial to defend himself.
In another attempt to organise the guidelines for the constitutional battle between the President and Parliament, the court set a date for a second preparatory hearing 1 week later on January 3rd.
Justice Lee Mi-sun said, while the schedule may feel rushed, the severity and the significance of the case for the country's governance requires such a timeline. This comes amid concerns that the trial proceedings may be lengthened intentionally as delaying tactics, as Yoon's team so far has expressed the need for more preparation time. Yoon's legal representatives were announced abruptly on the morning of the hearing, along with their plans to attend the session. Also, there are concerns that a ruling cannot be declared with the 3 vacancies in the panel of Constitutional Court justices. The court announced on Friday it is in the process of discussing the issue. As 6 out of 9 judges are needed to uphold the impeachment, the current panel of 6 justices would have to vote unanimously in order to remove Yoon from office. Oh Soo-young, 아리랑뉴스.
And senior diplomats of Seoul and Washington met up in the U.S. for the first time since the declaration of martial law. There, the two sides agreed to resume diplomatic and security agendas that were put on hold due to the order. Our Pae-eun-ji reports.
First Vice Foreign Minister Kim Hong-kyun met with his American counterpart Kurt Campbell. as South Korea works to put relations with the United States back on track amid political turmoil following the brief imposition of martial law earlier this month. This is the first time that a high-level meeting has taken place between the two countries since President Yoon Suk-yeol declared martial law on December 3rd. Kim reassured the United States that governance under the acting president is operating stably in South Korea, and showed hopes on strengthening bilateral relations as well as a trilateral partnership with Japan.
ROC U.S.-Japan trilateral cooperation, building upon the achievements we have made so far, not only for the remainder of the Biden administration, but during the upcoming new U.S. administration.
Campbell, who said he wishes South Korea well in a challenging period, said they're seeking to underscore their strongest possible commitment.
Our expectation is that the critical mechanisms in the U.S.-ROK relationship will remain in place, and we believe that a meeting schedule is important.
Following their meetings, Seoul's foreign ministry said on Tuesday that the two sides agreed to fully resume diplomatic and security events that have been put off and hold them at the earliest possible and mutually convenient time. Earlier this month, the two countries postponed a session of the Nuclear Consultative Group, which is their key nuclear deterrence body. But with only about a month left until U.S. President-elect Donald Trump takes office, concerns remain as to whether South Korea will be able to handle issues such as the cost sharing for American troops in South Korea. A senior South Korean official told reporters in Washington that the government will work on expanding communication with Trump's team before and after the inauguration. The official added that although nothing has been confirmed, if Trump's side wishes, they are willing to arrange a phone call or an in-person meeting with South Korea's acting president Han Duck-soo, adding that the Yoon administration has been communicating with the Trump team since before the U.S. presidential election. 배은지, 아리랑뉴스.
In a bid to better counter North Korea's hostile weapons ambitions, Seoul this week slapped over a dozen new names onto its sanctions list. They include 15 North Korean IT workers and one entity for illicit cyber activities to fund the regime's nuclear weapons and missile programs. According to Seoul's foreign ministry on Thursday, the North Korean workers in question are believed to have been engaged in crypto theft. Meanwhile, the entity that has been newly sanctioned is suspected of sending IT workers overseas to funnel their wages back into North Korea. The Kremlin says it's likely that North Korean troops will participate in next year's Victory Day celebrations in Moscow. A Russian foreign policy advisor Yuri Yushakov hinted on this on Monday, which builds up to what Russia's defense ministry said last month, that its defense chief invited the North Korean military to take part in the Victory Day parade during his visit to Pyongyang. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky also said Monday that over 3,000 North Korean soldiers have either died or been injured while fighting alongside Russian forces. Ukrainian military released a photo of a handwritten letter that was found on the dead body of a North Korean soldier as well. Dated December 9th and written in Korean, the letter said it wishes a happy birthday to Comrade Song Ji-myung. Now, the letter presumably was meant to be sent as the name that appeared to be Jung Kyung-hong was on the passport of the dead North Korean soldier. And Ukrainian authorities say there are more notes retrieved from North Korean soldiers, adding that North Korean forces are not yet playing a significant role in the war and that they're using tactics used in World War II. An Azerbaijani Airlines plane carrying 67 people crashed near Aktau city in Kazakhstan on Christmas Day, killing 38 people on board with 29 survivors. Now, 4 Azerbaijani sources say the ill-fated plane was shot down by Russia. Lee Seung-jae with details.
An Azerbaijan Airlines flight carrying 67 passengers crashed in Kazakhstan on Wednesday, killing at least 38 people. However, miraculously, 29 people survived the crash, including 2 children. Flight J28243 had taken off from the Azerbaijani capital Baku en route to the Russian region of Chechnya when it crashed while attempting an emergency landing. Of the passengers, 37 were Azerbaijani, 6 were from Kazakhstan, while there were 3 from Kyrgyzstan and 16 from Russia. Officials say an investigation is underway to find out what caused the deadly crash, but for now, no information has been released. Currently, the investigation process is ongoing in cooperation with the Prosecutor's Office of Kazakhstan. All versions are being explored in the criminal case. At this moment, we cannot provide any conclusions regarding the investigation. Meanwhile, Russian President Vladimir Putin expressed his condolences over the deadly crash. During the summit of the Commonwealth of Independent States in St. Petersburg, the Russian leader said Moscow would be helping by sending a medical team to Kazakhstan.
In agreement with the President of Kazakhstan, a Russian Emergencies Ministry plane with medical personnel and necessary additional equipment on board is flying to Aktau. Well, I repeat once again, let's hope for a speedy recovery of the injured ones, and of course, I am sure a thorough investigation will be carried out. We will coordinate the work of our special and aviation services on all issues related to this tragedy.
Moscow's aviation watchdog said that preliminary information suggests a bird strike had led to the pilot making the emergency landing. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang
In a rare comment, South Korea's central bank said in its monetary policy report for 2025 that it will cut its benchmark interest rate further next year due to deepening political uncertainties and higher downside risks. Now, that means a third consecutive rate cut may be on the way for the first time in 15 years. Our Song Yujin has more.
South Korea's central bank has announced plans to further lower the benchmark interest rate next year in response to economic risks. It said the decision is driven by political uncertainty and changes in the trade environment, which have intensified the downward risks to the economy. This follows cuts of 25 basis points to the base rate in October and November. A further cut would mean it's the first time there have been 3 consecutive cuts since the global financial crisis 15 years ago. In its 2025 Monetary and Credit Policy Direction Report released on Wednesday, the bank stated that it will reduce the key interest rate while maintaining inflation stability, easing downward growth pressures, and carefully managing financial stability risks. In addition to sluggish domestic demand, slowing exports, and the impact of the insurrection shock, the Bank of Korea also pointed to other factors, including the U.S. Trump administration's tariff policies and excess supply from China, as contributing risks. The central bank has forecast growth of 1.9% for South Korea next year, but this could decline further due to political uncertainties and budget constraints. Regarding future rate cuts, the pace will take into account both domestic and external risks, as well as changes in inflation, growth, and financial stability. Officials also promised to implement additional measures to stabilize the foreign exchange market. Song Yujin, Arirang News.
Now we have some favorable news on the demographic front. More babies were born in October on year, marking the highest annual rise in well over a decade. Our Lee Soo-jin has the latest figures.
The number of births in South Korea rose by the highest rate for October in more than a decade, positive shift amid the country's demographic crisis. Data released by Statistics Korea on Thursday showed 21,398 births in October, up 13.4% compared to the previous year. It's the 4th consecutive month of on-year increase and also marks the largest on-year increase for the month of October since 2010. And the increase of 2,520 births compared to the previous year was also the largest since October 2012. This comes as the number of marriages rose 22.3% on year to more than 19,000. An official from Statistics Korea said the general increase in marriages was a major driver behind the increase in births.
We've continuously been pointing to the increase in marriages influencing the increase in number of births, as well as the growing population in their early 30s.
The number of marriages has shown a steady rise since April this year thanks to efforts from the Yoon administration to tackle the population crisis through childbirth and marriage benefits. October also saw the largest number of marriages for the month of October since 2019. The Statistics Korea official added that the number of births was especially prevalent in women in the early 30s, with people getting married later. But while deaths still exceeded births in October, the number of deaths fell slightly compared to the previous year, leading to a population decline of roughly 8,000. The agency also projected that if this upward trend continues in November and December, the country could see an annual increase in the number of births for the first time in 9 years. Lee Soo-jin, Arirang News.
The year is nearing its end, meaning it's now time to start filing your taxes as we wrap up the year 2024. That being said, our Moon Hae-ryun walks us through some of the potential tax deductions for this year.
As the year comes to a close and a new one approaches, taxpayers in South Korea are gearing up for year-end tax settlements, a crucial annual process that determines refunds and deductions while offering opportunities to maximize financial benefits. And this year, families, starting from newly married couples to those with children, stand to benefit. Couples who register their marriage between this year and 2026 will be eligible for a 500,000 Korean won tax deduction, which equates to roughly $342. This is something that taxpayers can redeem only once, regardless of whether it is a first or subsequent marriage. For families with children, all medical expenses for children aged 6 and under will be fully deductible. Postpartum care is also now included as a medical expense, with even high-income earners with a total salary exceeding 70 million Korean won able to include up to 2 million won in postpartum care expenses within their deductible medical expenses. Additionally, the new reform to the child tax credit means that families with 2 or more children between 8 and 20 years old will receive an additional 50,000 won deduction. Several changes address housing cost burdens for buyers and renters alike. The maximum income deduction for long-term mortgage loan interest has been increased to 20 million won, with the standard price threshold for eligibility raised from 500 million to 600 million won. Workers with a total salary of 80 million won or less can deduct 15% of their annual rent payments up to a limit of 10 million won. For those with a total salary of 55 million won or less, the deduction rate is even higher at 17%. And to encourage spending to boost domestic demand, an additional income deduction is available for increased credit card and cash receipt usage. If spending has increased by more than 5% compared to the previous year, 10% of the increased amount, up to a limit of 1 million won, can be deducted. These changes represent a significant shift in Korea's tax landscape, offering substantial support to families and workers across various financial situations. It is crucial for taxpayers to familiarize themselves with these new regulations to maximize their benefits during the upcoming year-end tax settlement. Moon Hae-ryun, 아리랑뉴스.
From a scorching heat in the summer to a record snowfall in the winter, this year Korea has definitely felt the impact of climate change. As such, more and more consumers are pursuing environmentally friendly choices in their daily lives. To take a closer look at these, we have our reporter An Sung-jin here in the studio. Welcome, Sung-jin.
Hi, Dami. Thanks for having me here today.
Sure. So, Sung-jin, a specific keyword for next year relates to these eco-friendly moves, right?
Right, Dami. So this year may have been the pinnacle of demonstrating awareness of the environment. For instance, in Korea here, we saw the United Nations 5th and final round of the Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee last month. So as you mentioned, more people are opting for eco-friendly choices these days. The reasons may vary, but collectively this move shows climate sensitivity, which is a phrase that has been selected as a rising consumer trend in Korea for 2025. Climate sensitivity refers to taking action based on the awareness of the environment. Ultimately, it means that consumers and companies choose their strategies and actions based on the impact of climate change on our daily lives.
And Sung-jin, I heard you visited a cafe where you saw this in action. What's so special about this cafe you visited?
So this cafe in a quiet area in Seoul is actually special for a very specific reason. It does not provide any disposable products. If you look around in the cafe, instead of paper napkins or plastic cups and straws, everything here is reusable, even in the kitchen. If you want to take out a cake, you have to bring your own container from home. It may seem a bit odd, but surprisingly, a number of customers have tried this themselves.
Unlike other cafes, I like how this cafe is eco-friendly. Last time I came here, I brought my own pot to take out this cake. It's memorable that they really work on campaigning for a green environment.
The shop owner said the cafe strives for zero waste, and as a result, it produces only 1/10 of the trash of other cafes. But it's not only shops pursuing change. Customers are also stepping up. The social media influencer brings her own container to cafes and restaurants. Have a listen to what made her pursue these choices.
Recently, when I went to the market, the shop owner said I was the first to do something like this, and I had a lot of people stare at me. But as an influencer with millions of followers, I would like to work more on challenges like these.
Then, outside of these places, what are some practices already being held?
So both the central and municipal government have been working on reducing the use of plastic, especially in our daily lives. One impressive example that I think is important is a project that the Seoul metropolitan government has been working on. Especially post-COVID-19, the usage of plastic has skyrocketed, with more and more people ordering food at home. To reduce this and to further foster eco-friendly consumption, the local government had a zero-restaurant pilot project from 2021 to early this year, where if you order from certain restaurants, you have the option to have your food delivered in reusable containers. This was all under a grand scheme to create zero-waste Seoul. The Seoul metropolitan government also implemented the personal cup usage point system, where if you order a drink with your own tumbler or cup and pay with Seoul Pay, you can earn 300 won worth of points per order. This means if you use a personal cup every day, you can stack up to 9,000 won per month.
So that's over $10 per month. I wouldn't mind that. Now, on top of all these practices being implemented, what other efforts do we need moving forward?
Right, so in terms of efforts, there can be two divided ways. One, you can do as an individual, and two, since it involves multiple stakeholders, there can be methods where multiple stakeholders work together. First, let's have a listen to what a professor has to say about how individuals can make an impact.
These days, more people order delivery food, increasing plastic use. It doesn't require something big. If each and every individual can try just by a bit, it would bring much positive change.
What this suggests is that as climate change and environmental issues become more apparent, more and more consumers are making sustainability a priority.
All right, Sung-jin, thank you so much for the thought-provoking item today.
Pleasure as always, Tommy.
And the year of 2024 was a good one for Korea, especially on the cultural front. Just to name a few, South Korean author Han Kang was awarded the Nobel Prize in Literature. The sensation over Blackpink's Rosé's and Bruno Mars APT, and the return of the South Korean Netflix series Squid Game 2. Our Song Yujin has more.
As the year winds down, it's time to walk down memory lane and revisit the cultural highlights of 2024. The biggest moment came in October.
The Nobel Prize in Literature for 2024 is awarded to South Korean author Han Kang.
Han became the first Asian female laureate in the category and only the second Nobel Prize winner from Korea.
I think Han Kang winning the Nobel Prize was a defining moment that showed Korean literature is now part of the mainstream.
Turning to K-pop, Blackpink's Rosé and American singer-songwriter Bruno Mars's APT became a global sensation. Rosé became the first Korean female artist to achieve all this, topping Spotify's global chart, landing second on the UK official singles chart, and securing 8th place on the Billboard Hot 100.
With Blackpink and BTS not performing as a full group this year, there were concerns about K-pop's momentum. But Rosé showed her talent and potential as a major female solo star in K-pop. Her success also further solidified K-pop's status on the global stage.
Meanwhile, BTS brought good news for fans eagerly waiting for their return. The group's oldest member, Jin, completed his mandatory military service in June, becoming the first to reunite with armies.
My bias is Jin, so yes, Kim Seok-jin. So he comes back, and I don't know, I feel like my favorite person in the world, come back to me, and it's really important.
So the wait of 1.5 years, it came to an end, and we see him so happy, so handsome. It made us feel so proud.
J-Hope followed in October, bringing the group one step closer to their full comeback, with all members set to complete their service by next summer. However, not every news was celebratory. A dispute involving Min Hee-jin, the former CEO of HYBE subsidiary Adore, escalated into a family feud. In November, Min resigned, and New Jeans announced the termination of their contract with Adore, which was initially set to run until 2029.
The trust between us and Adore has broken down, so continuing our contract is just unacceptable.
Adore has filed a lawsuit seeking the validity of its contracts with the 5 members. On the screen, streamers thrived while cinema struggled. The domestic box office saw only 2 films cross the 10 million ticket mark, Exuma and The Roundup Punishment, both released in the first half of the year.
The impact of COVID-19 continued to linger, so there weren't many blockbusters, and even those marketed as blockbusters didn't perform well. However, there were notable efforts to try something new, such as screening so-called shorter snack movies, films that won awards at art festivals, re-releases, concert films, and horror movies.
But it was a different story for the streaming industry. Netflix's Culinary Class Wars became the first Korean reality show to top the platform's global top 10 non-English TV series list for 3 straight weeks. And the long-awaited second season of the Emmy-winning series Squid Game premiered on December 26th. And that was a wrap-up of 2024 in culture. 송유진, 아리랑뉴스.
That wraps up this week's weekly news highlights. Thanks for watching and enjoy the rest of your weekend wherever you are.